Hello and good morning. My name is Francesca Murialdo. I'm the Director of Programs at Middlesex University in London, and I'm really happy to be in Kuala Lumpur today. I'm here with DD Education, and I will talk through Middlesex and especially our interior design and interior architecture programs, and hopefully I will see you there soon. So first of all, I want to introduce who we are and what we do. We have 3 different programs at Middlesex about interiors. We have 2 bachelor's degrees. One is in interior design and another one in interior architecture. And then we do have a master degree in MA interiors. But at Middlesex, it's much more than that. And we are in North London, and we have just been appointed the #1 university by what's UNED Student Choice Award, and that was our very latest award. We brand ourselves as MDX Studios, and that has got very much to do with the ethos that we have at Middlesex University, in which we really want students to experience what working in a real setting is, and what we call knowledge into action is as a way of teaching and learning. So at MDX Studios, we develop the professional, creative, and technical skill needed to shape your future at North London University, Middlesex University. Our ethos includes studio-based teaching with individual support from lecturers and specialist technicians. We've got a really amazing range of technical support and workshops. We've got really strong industry partnerships and collaboration that will drive students towards resolving real-life problems. And employability is at the heart of what we do, so students and hopefully you will experience how working with real-life challenges is. We've got amazing facilities. To be honest, I don't think there is any other university in the UK with so many specialty workshops. They do cover all sorts of disciplines. Some of them are very specific to what we do in interiors. Others are very much specific to other disciplines. But we encourage students to experiment and test and use as many workshops as possible. At MDX Studios, we've got a huge range of creative programs. Of course, interior design and interior architecture are the ones I'm focusing on today, but we also have a foundation year in art and the creative industries, together with BAs in advertising, public relations and branding, digital media and communication, graphic design, illustration, fashion communication styling, and fashion marketing. We have very recently refreshed our MA offer, and even there are like very exciting new programs. Just to mention some of them, and then of course you can find the whole list in the slide that you will be provided with. We have MA Animation, Audio and Podcasting, Audio Production, Graphic Design and Creative AI, MA Interactive Experience Design, and of course MA Interiors. That is the one I am the director for. So going back today, it's not just talking about Middlesex, but it's trying to talk to you through what we do at Middlesex in interiors and why we do it and how we do it. And this is to expand and to talk about interiors, but also about communities and what we call the politic of space, meaning how space can really affect people's life and how is it important. So the first thing is to concentrate and talk about why interiors matter. So I think what we do as a discipline, it's really, really important. And I want to clarify with you why this is the case. So usually when people think about what we do, they've got a lot of misconception. And I'm sure that if you are already an interior design or interior architecture student in your career, you have all experienced that, in which when you say to somebody, I'm studying interior design, they think you do pick colors or choose furniture and rearrange things around. But this is, well, it's something, of course, we can do, but it's nothing like what we do, and it's nothing about our expertise. So it is what we do. It's got nothing to do with decoration. We can do that, of course, but it's nothing to do with it, and has got nothing to do with the scale of the room. But it is about actually how we rethink space. And space, it's really important because, of course, we all live, work, and shop and entertain ourselves in an interior. So interiors is really about rethinking how we live together, how we live, how we work, shop, learn, rest, care for one another, and imagine our futures. So it is really a responsibility as well, because you have as designers, and we have as designers, this huge responsibility about thinking what's going to happen in the future and try to provide everyone with the best space possible. Interior architecture, interior design, therefore, includes a really complex network of knowledge. So first of all, what we call the technical knowledge. So you cannot ever be a designer in isolation. You will always need to be connected to a series of consultants and specialists. So throughout your career as a student and as a professional, you will be working with a lot of different professionals, such as engineers, but also builders and anyone really that contributes to realize your design project. But it's also a very culturally and politically situated discipline, meaning that it's very important the context in which you are working. So it's never about what you like or what you think it's good, but it's always about trying to understand as much as possible which are the requests and which are the needs of the people you are actually designing for. So it does include a lot of research, it does include a lot of lateral knowledge that is really interesting, and you will be needed to understand the political, social, and cultural context in which you are going to be designing for. And therefore, research and inquire and critical thinking are all skills that you will need to nurture besides and next to the technical ones, of course. It is a collaborative practice as well. As I said, you cannot ever design in isolation. It's not something design, can do. And therefore, you will need also to develop a series of skills that will foster collaboration and that will make collaboration working for you. Why is this so important? So there is a clear connection, and it's been proved, of course, by research, that there is a clear connection between people's quality of life and the physical environment in which they live or work. And this includes both physical and mental well-being. So again, what you do as designer is super important and has got a massive impact on people's life. And that's why it's so important. And we also have to consider that space is something that gets experienced by every human, no matter where in the world. So everyone inhabits spaces at some point and in some way. So experience of space is something that really deals with everyone. And despite traditionally maybe design, it's been relegated to some very specific typology. So you might think retail, hospitality, and residential design. We also need to acknowledge that nowadays everything needs to be designed. You know, people deserve to live in better places, and you as designer will be able to impact on designing public spaces, not just museum, but also maybe train station and hospital and social housing. And the way you're going to be able to design it will have a massive positive impact on people's life. And, you know, it's a great responsibility, and it's very exciting as well. But of course, you know, as we say, interiors are not neutral. So the way you decide to go with your choices has, you know, an impact. So of course, they do reflect values, power structures, cultural assumptions, and economic systems as well. So depending on where and what you're going to be designing. They can be very inclusive, and hopefully you're going to be very inclusive, but they can also exclude people. They can care or they control. And it's really important that we kind of focus and concentrate on the discipline and try to understand how we can better do this. So designers, you know, as me and as you, are often trained to respond and resolve. You know, this has always been think as a problem-solving discipline, and design, you know, it is. But it is very important for you to also question and critique and imagine otherwise. So it is important to have the right questions, and the right questions need to follow your design process from the very beginning till the very end. We cannot solve any problem if we're not able to identify what the right questions is. So how we teach at Middlesex, and this reflects the way in which we think the design process should be facilitated. So my dream is to use our classrooms like civic laboratories and spaces where knowledge is co-designed and co-delivered. So I would really like our university spaces to become a place where people can feel free to come and join. And these can be industry, can be brands, but can also be community and organizations that come to us because they want to explore new ideas, think about the future, and frame a new project. And I call this idea the expanded studio. So we make sure that students always get the opportunity to work within themselves, within their cohort and with tutors, but also to work with organization and industry and people that it's usually not the people that you would expect to be teaching and learning. And I think they get involved into the teaching and learning process, and that's really interesting and it really benefits. I think students' ability to rethink the future and ability to research and think outside of the box has got massive beneficial for the industry. So this is a relationship that builds a very positive environment for both parties involved. And being a student, it doesn't just mean that you are in your position to learn, of course, that's the main thing, but you are also in a very fortunate position in which you can allow yourself to experiment and take some risk and try out things. And this kind of freedom that you have as a student, it's really a value. And it's something that doesn't happen as much maybe in your professional life, but it's got a value for itself. And it is very beneficial for interested parties, whatever they are, from industry or from a community group, to come and talk to students and really benefit from students' way of framing things that is usually very different from professional. So there is this kind of two-way relationship that works out really well. And that's why we really want the expanded studio to offer students opportunities to engage with many interested parties ranging from industry to community, institution, and to put their knowledge into action in that way. We mentioned that it's a collaborative practice, and it is in many different ways. We also mentioned already that has got many layers of knowledge that needs to be incorporated. But the collaboration sometimes also happen with disciplines that we don't think are strictly correlated, but it is very beneficial. So as interior designers and architects, we really need to look even beyond our discipline and to look at other discipline, creative discipline that can add something to it might be something from the process, it might be something from a methodology or the outcome that might be informing then our way of looking at things. So there is a project, for example, that we run in year one, and we've been doing that for a long time now, and it's been awarded many prizes in the last few years. And it is about forming a group of students that are a mix in between designers, so interior and architecture designers, and students from dance. And they've got a challenge to work together and to build some structures, to design them and then build them, that dance students will use to perform at the end of the project. And of course, it's not like interiors students are designing them and then dance students are using them. But they are working together from the very beginning, trying to understand each other's need. So, it's a really interesting project. At the very beginning, you might think, what do we share, with dance students? But of course, we do share a lot. We do share the body. And for us, as designers, the body, it's the starting point. We are human-centered discipline, meaning that we do design around the human being, around the body. So for us, how we move, how we behave in space, body's measures are very important to design, and pretty much the same for dancers. I would say that they use their body to shape space and to perform. So these two things putting together, they have highlighted how collaboration, even going beyond, what it's more expected, can really prompt something exciting and really successful. So it is not just about technical intelligence that we need to focus on, but it's about the social, ethical, environmental, and collaborative intelligence that is required to design a world that is fairer, it's more resilient, and more imaginative. And also the willingness to expand the debate. We started the short talk by saying that there is a lot of misconception about what interior design and interior architecture encompasses. And that's why it's very important that we keep on being out there, presenting proactively our work and explaining to people what we can support them with, that it's well beyond what they think we do. So it is about participating in public engagement project. We do a lot of these at Middlesex University. I think it's very much part of our ethos of mixing teaching and learning with community engagement. And it is about pushing a little bit our students to go out there, to present in public settings, to set up exhibitions that are not just at university but elsewhere. We've been partnering for a long time with the London Festival of Architecture, that I guess it's the world's biggest architecture festival, happens in London. It's 1 month long and happens every June. And we always organize within the program at least few events in which our students proactively participate and organize exhibition, talks, tours, and anything that help them in refining their skills, build their network, another really important thing, but also to get the word of what we do out there. And when I say that we are very much connected to industry, and it's not just having a relationship with them, but it's actually working together. So in December, we kickstarted a series of collaboration and events called Building Conversation, in which we want to include all the different sectors of the building and construction sector that, in a wide sense, it's the context in which we work. So we invited not only professional practices and design practices, but we did invite building construction, engineering companies, housing companies, local government, and everyone we thought would have been a part of helping us in shaping what the future of education and the future of job is, because of course we think we should all be working together to design what the future of the profession will be. And it's been really lovely to see how much all of these industry are really willing to come together with educational settings and shape the future of Middlesex student. I will now focus a little bit more on the 3 different programs, explaining a little bit what we do and what is the difference in between them. I will start from the MA. The MA, of course, as you know, it's 1-year program, and you can access to the MA just after having completed successfully a BA or a bachelor degree. It is 1 year, and of course it's very specific and allows the student to refine what they've been learning in their bachelor degree to get to the next stage and to get specialized in interiors. Between the 3 programs, there are a lot of things that are in common, and of course other things that are very different one from the other. But the one thing that is shared in common with all the programs is this strong focus on sustainability. And of course, we all know how sustainability is one of the most important things that we should all focus on, but particularly as designers, again, we've got a great opportunity to have a massive impact. We know that the building industry in the world contributed for 50% of the global waste. So that's quite a worry, and we need to recognize that this has got to do a lot with what we do and mainly how we do it. So it's the building and construction industry, but we need to remember that we can impact on the building and construction industry by designing things in a different way. So it's not something that regards something else, but it's something that can kickstart from us. So again, it's a big responsibility for you that you're going to be, the new designers of the future. But it's also really exciting to think that the way in which you think through your project might have, a positive impact on the environment. So the way you're going to be thinking on how to build and how to reuse and how to undo things and reuse and recycle them will make a massive change. The way in which we build today doesn't really allow for much reuse and of any materials or any fittings, and that's how it works. So demolition waste, it's a really high quality waste, and by high quality waste it means it's really impossible to get rid of it. So that's why it does impact so much. But in the future you will find ways in which you will be building things in a way through which you're going to be also able to think how to reuse them once the building doesn't fit the purpose anymore. So sustainability, it's really a focus on many different levels, and surely for each of the programs. And because of that, also we focus very much on building reuse, but I will talk about it slightly later. On the master, something that we always want to do with students is to allow them to work in collaboration with another cohort of students. And we've been doing that many times in many different ways. Most of the times is an international collaboration in which, the two cohorts of students find ways of working together. And then again, it's something that it has to happen. Our MA program specifically, it's very much international. We've got students coming from all over the world, and in this global setting it's really important for students to learn how to collaborate, even in long distance, and surely they will engage in project globally. So that's an important skill. And a project that we've been developing, it's also about what happens about virtual spaces. Sometimes, and it happens, it did happen even before COVID, but especially after COVID, we know how communication globally has changed and how we can embrace new ways of communicating. And therefore, we've been designing and building a metaverse space in which we had two cohorts of students, one coming from Milano Politecnico and the other one from Middlesex University, met and exchange ideas. So, it was a complete virtual setting in which we had a theater, a lecture theater, and we had studio and an exhibition space. And it was really interesting to see. It was an experiment that we ran, but it was really interesting to see how seamless that has worked out and how we could really reach an interesting result in mixing traditional, if you want, ways of exchanging ideas, like pinning up your work on the wall together with being avatars in a virtual space. And that was really interesting. And again, it makes us think as designers, what is the role of us? Of course, we deal with physical space, and that's very much what we do, and we deal with atmosphere and materiality and sensation. But also, it's quite interesting to see how other possibility opens up, such as, designing virtual spaces, because they are still spaces. The other big focus, and I want to say, really big expertise we have at Middlesex, it's adaptive reuse. We've got a lot of expertise because we've got a lot of professionals and very experienced tutors and researchers, and we all work one along the other to experiment, to teach, to reflect on what the future of adaptive reuse is. So what is it? So in few words, adaptive reuse, it means to find ways and strategies to reuse buildings that are not fit for purpose anymore. So the most sustainable building is the one that is already there. So, avoiding to demolish a building, it's a very sustainable move by itself. But of course, then that building needs to be edited to fulfill the new function. So, there are plenty of examples, and despite this is very much what happens in Europe mainly, and that's because we've got a massive extended building environment. I see that this is, something that is being considered all over the world, and I'm looking at examples in Kuala Lumpur, and it's really exciting to say. I'm sure you all know things like Rex KL, for example, former cinema, that it's really fantastic, one of my favorite projects that has been transformed into, it's even difficult to define it, but like it's a retail space, event space, exhibition space, and it keeps on changing. So this is my second time in KL, and I've been back, and there is always something new and exciting going on there. So of course, when you take a building, you need to understand how you can transform it, and sometimes transformation can be quite substantial, so you will try to retain the matter as much as possible, because that's where we get sustainable. But you might always, sometimes you really want to also retain the atmosphere, and you want to retain the history of the place. And I'm thinking again at Rex, but also at other places as in KL, as Central Market, for example. So you want to keep trace of the past, but at the same time, of course, you want to upgrade the building. Sometimes it's a technical upgrade, but most of the time, it needs to change. And, I think the clear example in the world is the Tate Modern in London, that I guess you all know. It used to be a power station, so nothing to do, a massive power station, and then it's been transformed a few decades ago into a modern art museum. So it is quite amazing, and the way in which you can do that implies, many different possibilities. So what we do in the MA and in the BA, it is to try to explore at different levels, in different ways, how we can make that work. In interior architecture, it is a program that is very much research-led. It means that because of adaptive reuse, students take a long time to really get into the details of what the context is. By context, we mean like physical and social and economical context, to fully understand what to retain apart from, the physical structures. And so they start by investigating, and then they get to make proposals that imagine a new life for the building. And by imagining a new life for the building, a new function, and new users, of course, the building itself gets quite transformed. And it might be transformed inside out, it might be cut, edited, extended, and edited in many ways. And there are many examples, and you will see some of the work. All the illustration that you see in the presentation are all students' work, mainly on the BA, apart from the few slides on the MA. And there are very different ways in which you can rethink and reimagine those spaces by altering facade, creating more porous spaces, altering the way in which you access the building, altering the way you travel across the building, but also altering the way in which you perceive the building, and maybe altering also the way in which the building tells a story and tells back the story that has gone through. So we very much like to think about building as traces and layers, and a little bit like a book that tells a story. And when you can actually merge the two things, you've got really successful project as the one we mentioned before. In interior design, again, it's slightly different. So the focus is slightly more onto professional and commercial practice. So still sustainability as, underpins everything that we do, and still dealing mainly with existing spaces, but in a slightly different ways. So the brief might include commercial spaces, so traditionally retail spaces, or hospitality and entertainment spaces. And students start the process by analyzing current and emerging trend. Again, trying to understand how to rethink how we live together in the future, and understanding how cultural shift, user behaviors, branding, and of course sustainability influence the design of interior spaces. And through a series of different briefs, students develop their own design identities, learning to articulate in detail a clear point of view while responding to client requests. And you will see through the slides, projects are grounded in real-world professional context, and students do design in very much detail everything that has to do with the interior space to a zoomed scale, in which they get to also design furniture to every detail. You will see there are like few exciting details of how to of a design handles, for example. So everything gets taken into consideration, and it's really important. And across both interior design and interior architecture, students are encouraged to challenge established norm, as we said. So it is about rethinking the future, but also to reflect critically on their work. That's really, really important. So it's not just for tutors to reflect and discuss project, and that's we go back to the idea of the extended studio, but it is for peers to engage with colleagues and being able to critique and supporting them. And it is for external guests and for members from the communities and industry to come and get together and get included and involved in that teaching and learning process. So the thing that the ingredients, let's say, the main ingredients of our teaching ethos to Middlesex Interiors, it's to blend teaching and learning, how we teach and learn together, with research and knowledge exchange. So we think research is something really important and really needs to underpin everything we do. So research comes first, because it needs to explore what possibilities are, but also research comes afterwards because it needs to reflect upon what we do and see how it works. And knowledge exchange, meaning that we want that everything that we do has an impact in the what it's called the real world context. And then community engagement. We really think it is important for the discipline to be open and to facilitate and to go beyond what we traditionally do by supporting communities and facilitating the design of public spaces. We work with the Middlesex community. Middlesex, it's a very big university, so I've been talking just about Middlesex Studios, that it's one part, but it's a massive university with a very big campus, and we do have other faculties like science and tech, health, and law and business. So we do engage with other communities within Middlesex. We do work a lot with local government and institution. Again, we think it's really important for policy making, for example, to have a clear relationship with university and with student work. We want them to know what we do and how we test and experiment things and how these can actually feed into what they do. We work with industry, organization, and the local community. And to reiterate what is that what we do, it's really important. I just want to talk on how we tackle global challenges. So, of course, you all know what the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals are. These are 17 goals, and that are meant to drive everything that we do in the future to get some goals. And, the ultimate goal is to have a better world for everyone. And we have got a lot to do with many of these UN goals, and we do map, to remind ourselves how important it is, we do map the UN goals to every project we do. And there are a lot of very important things that we're going to be really working close to. Such, a few examples, we've been working on the topic of edible futures and how production and consumption of food can be more sustainable, and how we can transform our city in a way in which they support this process, how we can design urban farms, how we can grow fruit and vegetables in local places. And this, for example, it's been a really nice, interesting brief that we did run in London, we did run in Milano, and we did run in Hong Kong. So it's another way to really collaborate and learn from each other, because the brief, it's been, of course, adapted in every context to reflect the local context. And then students have been talking to each other, presenting, different outcomes and discovering a lot of new, interesting things. But again, energy, carbon, and the built environment, how important it is in what we do to try to design things in a way in which we consume less. So, we are all aware how eating and air conditioning does affect so much the energy consumption and the overall warming and pollution. So that's something that again really relies much in how we design spaces, because it's got much to do with the comfort in which, and we can design better spaces, with better insulation, with a better relationship with the environment outside, and with a use of materials that it's more sustainable, and that also makes us relying a bit less on external source of energy. But in many other contexts, like for example in retail, so retail is one of my focus in terms of research, and I'm really interested in really understanding how we shop and why we do it, and the consumer behavior we have, and we know that fast fashion and hyper-consumerism, it's one of the other reasons that are posing us a lot of challenges in terms of sustainability and pollution. But we can become more ethical, more experiential, so retail spaces can shift their focus and more socially and locally rooted as well. So My research, for example, on retail futures explores how shops and services are changing through sustainability and circular design, digital transformation, localism and community economies, and hybrid environments. So there are, a lot of things that we can do pretty much in every sector to sustain a better world. And adaptive reuse, we say it like waste space. It's, a main focus of what we do. We've got a really high expertise in adaptive reuse, and we really always have live project. What we call live project, meaning that students are confronting, real issues. We've been running a project for a couple of years that is about a church in London, and how to better use the space. So nowadays people go to church much less than they used to. So they do go to church mainly on Sunday, but nothing pretty much happens from Monday to Saturday. So a priest of a local community came to us because he really wanted to transform the church from Monday to Saturday into a community center. He has this space and he was wondering how the space can benefit the community, how he can hold some activities, how he can provide shelter for the community. And so students went there, talked to the community, and came up with ideas in which the church can still work, as a church on the Sunday, but at the same time can benefit students, the community for the other days. And there are a lot of possibilities, and it's really exciting to see how you and students get their ideas through. And as I said, it is important to reflect before and after, and to research. So we all, as a team, engage very much in research, and we do participate in conferences, we do write papers, we do write books, and edit books, and we are very much very active in the network, nationally and internationally. We are very well regarded as researchers as well as teachers, but we see the two things strictly connected, and one feeding up the other. And of course, equality, diversity, inclusion, that's really another topic that is at the heart of what we do. And it's a big commitment for us. Again, I think it's something really important by designing spaces to make sure that you design spaces that are meant to be open to everyone. So, students and designers should really be aware of differences in religion, in habits, in ways of behaving, and making sure that what we design is appealing, and it's comfortable, and it's inclusive for everyone. So just to come to a close, I want to quickly go through a couple of projects we did run quite recently, and are different project, I think, from the thing that we usually do traditionally in interiors, and this is got to do with this idea of developing adaptive reuse, so the reuse of spaces as a social practice, meaning that what we can do is, of course, designing spaces, but we can also support communities and other people to envision and then co-design spaces for themselves. We have, as designers, a lot of skills, and sometimes we give them a little bit for granted, and we do have this capacity of imagining spaces and reimagining spaces. So, of course, every time you go into whatever, a restaurant, a cafe, you look around, you touch things, and then you come up with ideas on what you would have done instead. If it was me, I would have, got rid of that wall, I would have arranged things in another way. And as we say it, we can instantly make it happen in our mind. And we can also make it happen and communicate it to others. And this is something that we don't value enough and we give for granted, but this is a skill that not many people have. Of course, you can learn, and students, I'm sure that from year 1 to year 3 they recognize how much better they got in envisioning. But again, this is an important skill that can be used to support others to envision space. So communities and groups, sometimes they do know that they need a space, but they really struggle to understand beyond the functions. They really struggle to understand how that space can eventually work for them. So we've been experimenting in the past few years. We've been working at a series of projects in an area, in a neighborhood in North London, close to university. And the general question that we ask ourselves is, what happens when students, communities, designers, and the public sector's partners to co-author the brief, the methods, and the possible future of a space? So it's been really interesting because this has implied also to rethink on the design process and methodologies. So, we know very much, and you know really well, how to kick off a design process in which you do your research, then you've got your conceptual ideas, your design development. But then what happens if you've got to collaborate and listen and interpret, so many different interested parties in one time? So it has been great because it has been a case of thinking how to discuss ideas and how to agree on ideas and how to kickstart ideas within a group of very different people with different, not just background, but like way of framing things and way of seeing the work. So students do work with community groups, with participatory workshop. They come up with ideas on how to discuss ideas. And for example, we did build a massive, really big model of the neighborhood, and then we asked the people coming to the workshop, the resident or the businesses, to pinpoint something very specific, like the places they liked, the places that they think should have been developed, the places in which they wish to have more green space, but also other things like the places they thought were tricky, the places in which there were not enough light and they thought it was kind of not, there was a lack of security. So, in a very active workshop, you will see the video. We had a really fantastic live mapping, and at the same time, because we were pinning, all this information on the map in real time, this was also a great way to quickly agree things in between them. So everybody was just like discussing, shall we do this? What do you think about here? And that has worked out really well and provided, a lot of information for students then to elaborate and try to think what's to go ahead. So we really want students to engage with communities and to find ways on how to work with them. That, of course, it's very different from what, the ways in which they could engage and work in industry, in professional practice, at university. Among these different projects, we had the Kilburn Museum Lab, in which the whole idea was to build a museum that was a collection of stories from the neighborhood. So it was really questioning what the museum is all about as a concept, and move the answer to the community. And so there were a series of workshops. This was a project that was supported by the British Academy, was funded. And the question was like, what would you think a museum of your neighborhood should include? And people contributed with stories, with photographs, with objects, with books. We also had an original song wrote for the museum, and the students did work around all these input and the wishes that the community had, and how they were thinking about the museum for themselves, why they thought those stories were valuable, and how they wanted those stories to be communicated outward. And the students, so we did a lot of detailed project in which we got the object, and then in order to have the object able to be used in the museum itself, we 3D scanned the object, and then we 3D printed some copies of the object. So, we didn't have the responsibility of the emotional connection of those objects to the owners. And then we used the 3D scan to build a social media campaign in which we scaled the object. You will see a video, and we did through augmented reality technologies, we did scale the object, and we did put the object in the neighborhood, moving like they were like monuments. And students really did design and build the structure of the museum. We had a big opening. There are photos of the opening where we had, a huge amount of people coming and visiting, and everything has been produced by the students to, every little detail. So the museum, it's conceived as a flat pack museum. So, it's something that you can dismantle quite quickly, and you can move around. So it's been moving in the past couple of years throughout different venues like libraries, community centers, or galleries, and that's really lovely to see. So the museum, it's been going around in the community. And students, they did design every little detail. So they did design some very specific junction to connect some panels that form the structure of the museum. And in order to do so, they printed some plastic features that you will see by repurposing bottle tops. So they raised a campaign into the campus that it's very big, and they gathered all the bottle tops, the plastic bottle tops, and then they found a way to melt everything and print and produce those connectors. So it's a lot of work in really intentional working on very different layers. But of course, they've been also reflecting on when you work with communities, what does it change, comparing to what you work in a more traditional practice settings, and how we can facilitate a process, and how do we communicate it? Because of course, it's very different the way in which you communicate to a builder or to a community group. So we really like students to look through a range of very different possibilities and experiences, because we think interiors is going to develop even more in the future. We are very optimistic. We think it's one of the job of the futures. It's not just working in practice. It's much more than that. It is about contributing to building literally a better world. So I'm getting to an end, and I just want to reiterate how when we talk about interiors, we are not just talking about a space. It's a space-based discipline, but it is about building relationships. It is a human-centered discipline, and it is about shaping how we live together. And design can, a lot of time can reinforce existing systems, but we wish it can help us to imagine new ones. And this is it from me. It's been a pleasure. I've got here a couple of pictures of the team, so you don't just see me, but you see everyone else in the team. And there is a QR code that will take you to a really nice little magazine if you want to know more. Thank you so much. and hopefully see you soon in London.